Robert Raymond Hay was born in Springfield, Illinois on May 16, 1926. His father, Raymond Sr., worked as a clerk for a local coal mine, while his mother Bessie was a homemaker, and this small family of three settled in St. David, Illinois. When Robert graduated from high school, he enlisted in the United States Navy in Springfield, Illinois on April 20, 1944, and after his boot camp at the Great Lakes Naval Training Station, he was given the rank of Motor Machinist Mate 3rd Class. Not only that, Robert was also assigned to a newly commissioned ship. He was sent to the Imperial Docks in Norfolk, Virginia, where LSM-286 was moored. An LSM, short for Landing Ship Medium, was a type of amphibious assault ship built by the United States Navy between 1944 and 1945. Most of these vessels were built as transports, and most of them were intended for the Pacific Theater, where island-hopping operations were becoming bigger and bloodier, and the invasion of mainland Japan loomed ever larger on the horizon. When LSM-286 left the Imperial Docks bound for Pearl Harbor on May 22, 1945, her crew didn't know what the future held. They picked up cargo and dropped off soldiers and tanks at places like Guam and Wetak and Saipan, but LSM-286 never saw combat. When the war ended on September 2, 1945, LSM-286 was anchored near the battle-scarred island of Saipan, and Robert wrote the following terse note in his diary. Listen to VJ Day proclamation by President Truman today. The war was over. The crew of LSM-286 could breathe a sigh of relief. But there was another danger looming on the horizon. Robert's diary covers the entire history of LSM-286's service, but the most harrowing days of her life on the high seas began in late September. September 23, 1945. Regular sea routine. Had a rough night last night. Had a hard time getting to sleep. Saw several more small islands today. We are now in the East China Sea, and we're approximately 100 miles from Nagasaki this afternoon. We were due to arrive late this afternoon, but due to heavy seas and an LST having engine trouble, we will be a little longer. A mine was found by the destroyer escort and destroyed this morning about 200 yards off our port. September 24th, 1945. Arrived in Nagasaki Bay about 1100 and anchored. Received orders in afternoon to pull into beach and unload cargo. We unloaded about 1500. We were on the beach about 2 hours, in which time we went ashore and got a few souvenirs. We got into a Jap warehouse and got a lot of stuff. Pulled off the beach about dark and anchored in bay at dark. September 25th, 1945. Got in the harbor off a small village where we anchored last night. A little Japanese boy came over in a small boat and was given candy and gum by the crew. At 1500 we left the anchorage to take on fuel off an LST anchored further out in the bay. September 26, 1945. Moved to anchorage about 0600 after fueling from LST last night. At 1400 we got underway for Okinawa. I have the 4 to 8 steering watch. September 27th, 1945. Regular sea routine. Our destroyer escorts found and destroyed another mine this morning about 1630. Expect to arrive at Okinawa tomorrow morning. September 28th, 1945. Arrived off Okinawa this morning early and continued to fool around awaiting orders to go in and anchor. September 29th, 1945. We were out at sea again due to typhoon warning off Okinawa today. This way I guess we will fool around until the storm blows over. October 1st, 1945. Underway with a number of LSMs because of typhoon. October 2nd, 1945. Underway, conditions as usual except in the morning. Pulled into anchorage off Aishima. It is the island where Ernie Pyle was killed. October 3rd, 1945. Pulled into the beach at Aishima this morning, and are loading up with Army engineers and their equipment. Saw a small monument for Ernie Pyle where he was killed here. October 4th to 8th, 1945. After loading yesterday at Aishima, we came back to Okinawa and anchored in Buckner Bay. In the last few days, we have taken in fuel, dry stores, and gotten mail twice. Johnson's cousin came over from the LST 834. We are supposed to take a fresh store before going to Japan. There is a typhoon warning out, and we changed anchor. We are now in a more sheltered part. On October 4th, 1945, Typhoon Louise was spotted developing in the Caroline Islands and tracked as it moved on a predictable course to the northwest. Louise was expected to pass into the East China Sea north of Formosa on October 8th. But the typhoon did the unexpected and veered north toward Okinawa at the last minute. On the evening of October 8th, the storm slowed down as it approached the island and began to greatly increase in intensity. The sudden shift of the storm caught many ships and small craft in the constricted waters of Buckner Bay by surprise, and they were unable to escape to sea. October 9th, 1945. On the morning of October 9th, the typhoon struck. A small tug that was tied to the stern of a merchantman was sunk when the merchantman swung around and hit it. The weather is getting worse all the time. No rain, but the wind blows spray over the ship in solid sheets. We had to raise anchor about 12:30 p.m. because of other ships dragging anchor near us. At 1500 we finally got anchored again, but have to use our engines at 1/3 action, or 400 RPMs, to relieve the strain on the stern anchor. The weather is really bad now. Wind for a velocity of nearly 120 knots. Many ships are going on the rocks and sending out distress signals. About 2000 our stern anchor cable broke, but we had to let out our bow anchor, which is dragging and looks pretty bad. We can't see a thing topside. All we can do is wait and pray that nothing will hit us. The LSMs 361, 15, and 307 are all out of control now, and the 361 is beached. There are several ships of other kinds on the rocks too. An LCI just went by our fantail, apparently out of control. We are still dragging anchor. The bow anchor only weighs 700 pounds, so it won't hold mud. At 2300 we saw 2 men with life jackets float by, but couldn't get a line to them. At 2310 we slid up on a reef, and at the present time are stuck fast. Muller reports no leaks of any kind, so I guess we will float. We will have to stay here till morning. October 10th, 1945. We got off the reef this morning at high tide about 0630, and are now heading to sea. The weather is nice this morning. The sun is shining and you can see all kinds of ships piled up on the rocks along shore. We are now on patrol duty looking for survivors. We heard shouts and a whistle about 2000, but couldn't pick anything up with the searchlights. It's a pretty rough night, but not too bad. October 11th, 1945. Pulled into harbor today and are now alongside LSM 122. Saw several fellows I knew from Little Creek. October 15th, 1945. We are tied up alongside LSM 111 until late afternoon, when storm warning was received. We have no storm anchor, and as the water was rough, we bumped the side of the other ship so bad that permission was granted to go to sea. I had the 12-4 steering watch. October 16th, 1945. Went back into Buckner Bay and anchored at 0830, but got underway again about 0700. October 19th, 1945. Went alongside repair ship and had a diver go down to look at our bottom and screws, but found nothing awry. We also got a new stern anchor and cable. This new anchor is smaller and weighs 1,500 pounds, which is 500 pounds lighter than our regular one that we lost. Typhoon Louise left a path of destruction in her wake. A total of 12 ships and craft were sunk, 222 grounded, and 32 severely damaged. Personal casualties were 36 killed, 47 missing, and 100 seriously injured. Almost all the food, medical supplies, and other stores on Okinawa were destroyed, and over 80% of all housing and buildings knocked down. The island's military installations were temporarily out of action, and over 60 planes were damaged as well, though most were repairable. The war had not ended on September 2nd. This damage, especially the grounding and damage to 107 amphibious craft, including the wrecking of 4 tank landing ships, 2 medium landing ships, a gunboat and 2 infantry landing craft, would likely have seriously impacted the planned invasion of Japan. For Motor Machinist Mate 3rd Class Hay and the crew of LSM-286, life returned to its dull, normal routine. But just 6 months later, the ship was brought back to Norfolk, Virginia for decommissioning. Hay and a small skeleton crew worked on board the ship until May 17th, when he wrote the following entry in his diary. Left the LSM-286 this afternoon about 4 o'clock. Had a decommissioning ceremony this afternoon, and the ship is now in the reserve status. Robert Hay was discharged from the Navy a few months later, and he returned to St. David, Illinois, where he found work as a tipple man in a coal mine. He met a pretty young woman by the name of Betty, and by 1960 they were happily married, and living in this house on Sunview Drive in Canton, Illinois. Here he lived many happy years with Betty, until his passing on November 14, 1998, at the age of 72. LSM-286 was sold off by the Navy as surplus in January of 1947. Her fate is unknown.